What is he doing?
Why?
What's wrong with this guy?
Okay, guys, we can't put up with Craig's antics any longer. Let's. I'll meet you guys at the studio.
Grown men.
The following program contains violence, coarse language, James Sharman, Amy Walsh's ghost, mature themes, Jimmy Brennan's eye, immature themes, Dan Wong, adorable kittens, Iain Hume, adult situations, leather pants, Craig Forrest testicle, and full frontal nudity. Viewer discretion is advised. This is Footy Prime on OneSoccer. Let's get this party started.
Thank you, JC. Thank you, JC. Yeah, no dubs today.
No dubs.
She'll return next week. However, special guest, friend of the show.
Much more accomplished.
Yep.
She'd love to hear that.
Iain Hume. Way more surgery than dubs over the years. So, Hume, welcome to Footy Prime, the actual TV version of Footy Prime. And I must mention this as we wait for Craig to show up, who's late for a change. There he is. Hey. Craig. Hume is a bit of a legend here in OneSoccer.
Yes,
right?
I've heard
and
this.
It's very fitting given our show. He is the first person at OneSoccer to ever drop an F-bomb on air. Hume, it's been a few years now, man, but you're still a bit of a legend in these parts.
Yeah, Sam Adekubi. I think it was just fitting for the occasion, qualifying for a World Cup after how many years, and Sam put in a hell of a performance, so I thought I'd drop the F-bomb just before it.
It worked very well. Now, you've been teammates with Jimmy for a long time, haven't you? For a number of games. I think you arrived after Craig had retired, obviously. Just about.
Yeah, he's a lot older.
Yeah. So, you know, Craig talks about the young Jimmy Brennan breaking through at the beginning of Jimmy's international career. Jimmy, do you remember a young Iain Hume breaking through in Canada?
I do. He had a lot of similarities to Pesci, the way that Pesci played. Both.
Sure,
you can call you little, petite, wee man?
Whatever the hell you want. I can kick myself in the head.
I don't know if he wants to go by petite.
Or
Diminutive, isn't it?
No,
Yeah, diminutive's a word that's used quite a bit.
Or the Frodo kind of.
Tiny feet, though. I got tiny feet.
You got tiny feet. No, but he was coming through, and you know he had great pace. Loved to get in behind, aggressive approach, and I remember watching him going, "Oh, like, who's this kid? This kid can play." And obviously being over in England as well, and learning his trade, and got into the national team. Now, one thing I did say, like he was a good teammate. He worked his backside off, but his haircuts were terrible. You had some horrendous.
Hey, you and Birchie were the ones who dragged me there. When we were in Kingston when I dyed it, so don't be throwing that one on
Dyed
there.
it with a big maple leaf on the side of his head.
Hey, it is what it is. I didn't give a crap back then. I was one of those guys that when I was full of energy, full of confidence, I did whatever the hell, like Birchie, like coming in and the stupid haircuts he came in, and I played against him when he was at QPR.
Yeah.
He's a bad leader, bad example for me. Yeah. But I was
He's
around
not the guy you meant to follow.
At the time, it was perfect because back then, I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed a drink. I enjoyed playing, training, going for a drink, and now not so much time, but back then it was the way it was. It was.
Yeah.
It was the culture, unfortunately, and not just with Canada soccer, everywhere. Even in the UK, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You got to put the reins in a bit, and coming into the squad with you and Birchie and all them there wasn't an easy one to follow.
Hey, Craig, are we better off nowadays with this full professionalism of footballers? I'm sure they have their fun. They have their fun. We know that. But like Hume says there, it's a different era now to when you played, certainly.
Yeah, it's a different era. I don't know. I think it's probably better now, but it's probably not more fun. I think we had so much fun back then. I don't think it can be possibly leveled. It was just outstanding. The dressing rooms everywhere were just different class. And I think that's what, like, I'd speak for the other guys, but I think that's what we missed the most is the dressing rooms and that the banter and showing up every morning and just having that buzz, because there was a classic just about every single training session, you know, and it's just the guys were different level as far as banter goes. And I miss that more than anything else.
You used to get excited in the mornings. And then you're getting in your car, right? You'd be laughing to yourself because you knew somebody was coming in with a story.
Yeah.
There was always something that was happening. And the banter was off the chart. That was the biggest.
Well, there's that picture of Craig black and white picture with 8 nude guys in a bathtub, right? Like in one of these soaker tubs. And I'm wondering, does that happen anymore? You know, is that kind of
public health
camaraderie?
issues?
Well, probably at Ipswich, but at the same time, I'm wondering, does that kind of camaraderie happen on the pro level weekly, like at TFC, at in the MLS, or is everyone so about me?
They probably have individual baths now, I imagine.
Well,
but I'm not going to be that guy. I'll tell you this for free, Wong. I'm not going to be that guy that's going up to some player and saying, "Excuse me, but."
What are you talking about? You're absolutely the guy.
And I'm going to go,
Walker, let's go have a bath.
Do you guys have a communal bathtub?
Yes. You're absolutely the guy who would say that. It's like all of us would be in a bathtub soon enough if it was up to Jimmy.
Yeah,
after
but
the
I'm
show.
not having a bath with you. I'm not. There's no chance.
Really?
No, there's many people I have a bath with before you are.
Come on, I'd be fine.
Craig and Jimmy will tell you, though, when we were still playing, like, obviously I retired a little bit after you guys, but even towards the end of my playing time, it was who can get in from training, showered, and get the out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, back when I first started, we were playing head tennis underneath the stand at Tranmere for 2 hours after training. Yeah. Just for giggles, like kicking crap out of each other, 50-50s over the net, like somebody's coming over with an elbow. But you did that. You just stayed as a group. Towards the end of my time, like when I was at Preston and I moved to Fleetwood and all that, it was who can get in and out. Like, there was nothing extra. Some people would go in and do half an hour, 45 minutes in the gym, and then piss off. Yeah. Because, unfortunately, a lot of people didn't live in the city. So they'd be living an hour away, hour and a half away. Like, I lived an hour away, but I'd still hang around and do whatever. Yeah. Do free kicks, do head tennis outside, wherever. But now it's like, I got stuff to do. I got TikToks and Twitches to do.
Isn't this a case, though, fellas, honestly, of old men being bitter about the past? We all do it, right?
Not at all, because they're better than we are. Like, let's be honest, they're...
No, because there's something like... these guys always talk about the dressing room, right? And what they miss. And I'm wondering, do that top level, with the money that's involved, with the limousines, with the protection, the security, do they even get to do that kind of work? So, Craig, when you were at the end of your career, obviously the Canadian national team had that feel. You guys always talk about it. But with West Ham and Chelsea, was there that feel at the end of your career?
There certainly was at West Ham. Chelsea was a little bit different. It was pretty fragmented as far as the players go, where they lived, where they traveled into, which is a little bit different because even though everybody's in the London area, you could be an hour and a half from training. It was much different. So, about the baths, it's not like, you want to have a bath with a bunch of men. But at the same time, I'm not worried about necessarily the men I'm bathing with at the moment. I'm worried about the guys that were bathing in this bath 100 years ago because it hasn't been cleaned.
It's amazing how it's changed. We talk about culture, and we're seeing it right now in Toronto, right? Toronto FC, we keep hearing this word culture. And the toxicity in that room right now. This is John Herdman's first official week on the job. It started officially on Sunday. It's a big jump for John Herdman. He's announced his squad, his staff. No surprises there. Terry Dunfield is still there as assistant coach, which is good, I think, the right thing there. But there's so many changes for John Herdman. Where do you start with this Toronto FC team, Hume? There's so many issues. It's been the worst season in history, ahead of a season that we thought might result in a cup at one point a few months ago now.
I'm not going to lie, I don't support them. Brutally honest. I support every local team, but I fell out of love with TFC years ago, even prior to winning it. Like, I supported Jimmy when he came over, obviously not kissing your ass, but he's a buddy of mine. He came over and getting his number retired is a bit ridiculous, but comes over. but seriously, he came over, captained the club, playing local. Like, it's good to see. Jules came over. I know he got a lot of criticism, supported them for that. I would have loved to have seen other players come over, like more senior players. Why didn't they try to push the boat out and bring Tiba in a couple years ago? Yeah. Like, not when he's 40, bring him in when he's 31, 32. He would have been amazing. But they didn't do that. So I started thinking about it. And
Iain Hume would have been a good addition.
Well, they me a couple of times. Hey, they're not the only one in the room who didn't reply to me.
Wait, there's a story here.
Got snow.
This is York.
Hey, he'll call me to bring me in for this, but he won't call me back bringing me into the CPL. But,
Jimmy, can you
He was
expand
coming
on
towards
that?
the end. He was like he was running in
You could have
quicksand.
called him back, though, couldn't you?
Hey, I'd have pissed all over that league the
He had a
first couple of
parachute
years.
on his back when he was running.
Hey, you know, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, so don't give me that. No, I just stopped supporting them. And then they bring in Bradley, and Michael Bradley did well, or is doing well for the club. Well, not as much as of late, but Altidore and all them. They brought them all in. They had other people they could have brought in and give that sort of money to. And for me, I could care less anymore.
So you won't even go down to watch TFC game? I mean, I know you live a little bit further out, but you could see a professional game beyond CPL.
Yeah, it's great. Like, to be honest, the amount of time it's going to take me to travel down, I may as well pop down to an MLS game. It's, I'd rather go watch Leafs. I'd rather go watch the Raptors.
Well, I'm glad that you're on FOOTY Prime.
It's good that you answered the question.
Yeah, no, listen.
What did they need to do?
But I find that interesting. A former professional. But football's been your life for so long, right? It's sad that that's what's happened to your, relationship with the local MLS team here. But listen, back to Herdman, Craig. I mean, it's a huge job, right? We know that. Where does he start? This is week 1. Now, we don't know whether Terry will remain on the sidelines for the next 3 games or whether John will be there. We don't know that situation. What do you think should happen? 3 games left in the season. I mean, from being on the sidelines, there isn't much you can accomplish.
No. I mean, first of all, it's a strange situation when you have a club that's struggling and they're in the bottom 2, you hire a new coach and then he doesn't show up for a month. That's very unusual in football. I mean, around the world, if you get hired as a coach in the bottom 3 and you have the threat of relegation, that changes everything. That manager is there the next day to get things going. You need to save yourselves. And this position, in this scenario, you don't have that. So they're looking for an effect from John, obviously, otherwise they would have brought him in right away. And they've sort of, I think the management have given up on the team a long, long time ago, and that they decided, let's bring him in just near the end to try to make some sort of impact. At least it'll be interesting to see what happens in the games, because there has been this in a few of the games that we've seen, going even back to a few weeks ago or a week ago with Miami, that they're not closing down. They're not working hard enough for me. And I'm not sure if they're fit enough, what it is, but the one thing that you can do is, if you're losing, is put a shift in. And I think that that's where it's lost me, is that they're not putting a shift in at the level that I think they can. And when John comes in there in his first game, you're going to see them run and close down and everything like that. Well, what's that telling you about how they've been playing in the last 5-6 weeks under Terry? I think it's disrespectful. So I think that'll be first and foremost. He'll want an attitude change in the dressing room, change that culture right away, and hopefully he'll put a dent in it before the end of the season to get him set up for next season and get off the gates and start the season off well.
Yeah, I think he's looking at this squad right now, sitting from afar, watching the games. Obviously, he's got a great relationship with Terry Dunfield, so he'll be finding out what's going on in that dressing room, who's the bad apples, who are the good guys. And then I think he'll get through these 3 games, and then strategically, he's got to get rid of a lot of players. He'll be looking at what players are out of contract, who can I shift and move on, what players can we get in, who's available to make this squad stronger. But I can see a big change in that dressing room, because you can't keep that right now and all of a sudden magical. It's going to be wonderful and roses next season.
What's your first day look like? You're going to walk into Herdman's position. You're a gaffer. What's your first day look like?
My first day, the one big thing for me is I'd want to sit down with a lot of the players and have a conversation with them, get to know who they are, what's been going on, what's been the issues, why you're not performing. And I think over the next couple of days, that's going to be a big role for him, is really find out who these guys are as individuals. Mm-hmm. And then he'll start making his assessments on everybody of, this guy's not right for me, this guy's honest, he's telling me the truth, I want to keep him because I believe in him. So he's got a lot of work to do.
Has he not been in the door, like, speaking to people at all, or is he...
Must have been.
I don't know.
Like, the question from the outside must be, with this massive signing of John Herdman, is he keeping away to relieve accountability from himself? Because if he comes in a month ago and he does, like Craig's saying, change things a little bit earlier, they're only like 7 points outside of playoffs.
But is it to remove accountability or just clean? I want a clean sheet. Because we were talking on the podcast last week, he couldn't ask for a better situation. Coming in with, especially with, I mean, we were going to talk about Insigne at some point, with the locker room, the media, the marketing, the communications all kind of falling apart right now. This is kind of where you want to come in.
Well, I wonder, though, if the initial hire, announced when it was more of a PR move on TFC's part.
100%.
Right? There was nothing positive at that point.
Yeah.
It was like, this is going down a black hole, this club. So to announce John Herdman gets the conversation, the tone changing. Okay, there's hope. We're bringing a big name in. And yeah, it's not for another month. And let's be honest, we won't see the effects until next season. But to me, that's why it was announced then. He'd made up his mind. It wasn't a future at Canada Soccer for whatever reason. And the timing kind of worked out. Yeah, let's announce it now, change the narrative, and then I'll come in at the end, sit in a press conference, speak to some media, learn a bit about this team, Craig, because listen, he knows Terry well. He knows that club. He knows who the bad seeds are at this point, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and Iain makes a very good point. Like they weren't that many points out of playoffs. I mean, my goodness, 18 teams make the playoffs. So that clearly tells me that the management has given up on the team and that they've got no shot, because why wouldn't they bring him in earlier to try to, salvage something from the season? But they've obviously decided not to. And yeah, he's got a lot to figure out. But when you look at Toronto FC and all the leagues, say the top 20 leagues in the world, with the money that they spend at the top of the MLS table, this is one of the worst scenarios and probably one of the worst teams you could possibly have with all the resources that they have. The other team down there is Colorado. They don't spend anything. I get that, but I don't get the Toronto FC thing. So under all the circumstances over the last few years, this will be 3 years in a row they finish in the bottom two, spending a ton of money and not being successful. That's something that we don't really think about much, but it's atrocious. It really, really has been.
I can imagine Colorado saying, yeah, we stink, but we haven't spent a dime.
Yeah. Precisely. There's a reason why we stink.
Yeah.
We've got a plan, maybe a strategy to build slowly. It's ugly. It got even uglier this past weekend. They lost, obviously, the match 3-2, but in the stands, there's a viral video making the rounds of Lorenzo Insigne taking on a fan, going back and forth. It's pretty ugly. Is there any way back, Hume, for Insigne at this club?
Probably not, but again, you got to defend the player a little bit, because the guy's there watching his team play, regardless whether he's injured, whether he's out, whether he's in, whatever. The fan feels to have the right to abuse him, but when he abuses back, if that was happening in the street, nothing gets said about it. But because at a game, he's not allowed to have his say.
He's got to walk away, hasn't he?
You do. Ask Jimmy. To a certain extent, you do. To a certain extent, you do. But where did the fan go? What did he say exactly? Like, there's limits. And I'm sorry, as a human being, if somebody gets in my face, I'm.
He said you're diminutive. This is what he said.
Well, exactly. He wanted to be called petite. Like, he was upset about it.
I know what you're saying there. I know what you're saying there, Hume. But if you're a professional, he's played in Napoli. All right. He's heard bad things said before to him. He also understands he's a professional. No matter what is said, and the fan was probably in the wrong, said some terrible things he shouldn't have said, and that should be dealt with. But you just can't interact with fans like that. He knows the tone of this fan base and how they perceive this team right now. The fans are angry. They're furious. You just can't engage, can you, Jimmy? You have to walk away. He was pulled away by his handler.
Look, it's difficult because, if somebody's saying something to you and a couple times you're like, okay, leave it alone. But if someone's persistent and they cross the line, your head goes a little bit. And yeah, you've got to have controlled emotions and be the better person.
Craig's laughing. You speak from experience? What's the closest you've been?
Well, I've had it out in the street, but not in the stadium. And somebody says something, and I tell them what I think, they say what they think, and we walk on. But I think he's got to be...
That's the worst story I've ever heard.
Yeah, there's way more to that story.
There's got to be.
There's a lot more to it.
Okay.
But look, it's like anybody. Him, Forrest... When someone crosses a line, you'll say something back because you defend yourself. But I think where he is, and he's in the box, yeah, somebody's egging him on a little bit, looking for a reaction. Sometimes it's best just to walk away, especially seeing as where the club is today. They're not doing well. And as you saw, now the media is all over this. It's just blowing up. It gets blown out of proportion. And it's the last bit of publicity that the club needs right now. So for me, I think Insigne, he's got to be the bigger man there. Realize where the club is.
Timing's
right now.
horrible.
Understand
for
the fans are frustrated.
Yeah.
Just walk inside.
Yeah.
Close the door and watch a game behind the closed glass.
I think the difference is in Europe is that there's not just one person having a go. There's a whole section of 10,000 having a go. So the last thing you're going to do is get involved and try to have a little banter back with all these people. So yeah, it didn't happen individually. It was usually in masses when it happened over in Europe. So you're best off with the tail between the legs.
Craig, you have a story of fan interaction, didn't you, earlier in your career?
I did, yeah. It was my own supporters. I mean, every stand or every stadium has a section where you got the younger, sort of exciting, want to get involved, want to chant. It's that section. And then at Ipswich, there's one end where it's more older people, quieter, sit on their hands, moan a little bit, and they kept moaning at the team, moaning. They're groaning, and I behind my back, I gave them the wanker sign. put my hand, gave him the wanker sign, and then that didn't go down too well.
Did the club find out about that?
What's that?
Did the club find out about it?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Oh, yeah. I had to pay a fine and everything, and I had to sort of, obviously retract it and say it was out of line or whatever, but
You said, didn't you say an itchy ass or something? Like,
yeah.
there was.
Well, nowadays with the social media and everybody having a camera on them, it would have been absolutely caught, and then that would have made the rounds on social media. This is something else that you make a split-second decision to have a bit of banter or interaction with a fan coming at you, and boy, oh boy, everybody's going to see it. You see that sort of thing everywhere. We saw it even recently on the weekend with the European Ryder Cup thing, and they're in the parking lot, and Rory McIlroy's having a go at somebody, and it's all on camera. You can't get away with anything. It all becomes a story. So it's different times, certainly, but when you're interacting with fans, you do have to try to pull yourself back as much as that pains you sometimes.
Yeah, you're right, because a lot of the times too, people don't see the whole story. They'll just see that one incident that happens for that player and what they've done. They don't know the rest. And that's why you've got to be careful as a player these days.
Remember that Eric Cantona karate kung fu kick when he was playing at Selhurst Park for Manchester United? A fan runs down, I don't know how many rows, to just abuse Eric Cantona, and Cantona does the karate kung fu right over the edge of the advertising boards. And when that happened, I remember sitting at home thinking, good for you, Eric.
Every pro out there was thinking the same thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Everybody was.
And it's very easy for the media and, do-gooders to stand there soapbox and chastise the player. But, I mean, I've never been through that. You're playing a game that you love, and there's 10, 20, 30, 40,000 fans just berating you. It takes a strong person, right, to walk away, I suppose. We should give the players a little bit of credit here, I suppose, at times.
Well, that's the thing. People forget, and as privileged as we are for doing what we love and getting paid for it, and some getting paid a lot more than others, still human. End of the day, you're still human. You have that instinct where you defend, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes you lose track of where you are. And okay, Insigne's in a box. He's crown on his head, sitting in a throne, sitting there watching the game. But
I wish he was, by
you're
the way.
still human. But you're still human, and you still react. It doesn't matter who you are. It takes a lot to not react even a little bit. He possibly went overboard, but you do react.
Do you have a story?
I don't. I just... Back in the day, like Craig's saying, you didn't have all the social media. You didn't have all this. So the amount of abuse we used to get. You coming down that left wing at Forest, if you're up against the away fans or on away grounds and you got those fans, you would have got pelters.
Oh, yeah.
You got called anything under the sun. I seen a thing at Tranmere last week, or not last week, last season. Goalkeeper came out and he was shouting back and forth with the fans, and one of them dropped a C-bomb on him. He reported it to the league. The kid got suspended from the club. for like a season ticket. I'm like, come on, grow up.
Yeah.
Like it happens. Come on. Like just as long as it doesn't go below the belt, like it's banter back
Well, it
and
did.
forth.
It was a C-bomb.
Yeah. Oh, bless him.
Must blow the
That
belt.
must hurt.
I don't know what that word is.
Yes, you did. We have certain limits. You know, I thought without Dubs being on the show today,
Yeah.
it'd be the swear quotant would be way down.
Oh my
but
God!
It's not.
Perfect fill-in. He's the perfect fill-in.
I've not been too bad. Give me a beer, it's a lot worse. But
Well, even Craig's getting into it.
I know. It's great. It's great. No, it's interesting, and listen, it's going to be a fascinating few months at TFC. But I mean, you can't change 20 players, right? And there's some kids there who have had decent seasons, who have learned. There's some talent there. Jonathan Osorio's going nowhere. You know, scored 2 goals in the weekend. Latif Blessing's a good player, right? There is something there, but how do you change the culture of a room without making significant changes? It's not just the new manager coming in, is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to be the man. He's the guy that's got to set the tone. He's the guy that's got to bring the culture into this club. It's a wounded animal right now, big time. And he's got to figure out, how am I going to get the best out of these players right now? They are rock bottom. And the worst that I feel for is the young players, because the young players that they've used. Now, you're supposed to nurture them, and you give them a couple of games here and there. They've rode them so long because they've had so many injuries, and they've been set up to fail.
Right.
And those are the players that you have to go back and get a hold of now and start nurturing them again, get your arm around them and get them to love the game more or less again, because what they've been involved in and what they've seen should not be what young players sees. It shouldn't be at all.
It's interesting. Yesterday, Footy Prime's social media manager reached out and said, the John Herdman era begins today at TFC Live. So what do you expect to see happen over the offseason, and what do you expect to see next season? Big opinions only, please. Steve Kendersky, I hope I'm saying that, Kendrisky, big to me, keep the Italians and young talent and build around them, essentially what Herdman did with Canada. Is there any truth to that? Can you do that? You were just talking about young players. Is that off the table? The Italians have to go, almost. Are we exporting them back?
To be honest, and I know it's going to upset some portions of Toronto and Woodbridge and everything, for me, they've got to go. I think they're supposed to be leaders going out and winning games, and for the games I have watched, they've pretty much been passengers. And for what you're paying them, which is extortionate, okay, they're quality players at the time, especially when you brought them in, but for me, they're not having the effect they need, and I think the sooner they go, the better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you look at what they're paying them, if you can move them on, take that money, imagine the squad that you could build as well, the players you could get. I mean, you spend a fortune on 2 wide players, but you don't have a number 9 that can score goals. And I think they've really got to step back, have a look at the big picture and think, okay, if we can move this player on, free up some cash, who is our number 9 going to be? We need another central midfielder or number 10 who can be creative and get in these areas and pull other players into play. But to spend that much money on two wide players seems an awful lot, especially when they're not performing. And where the club is today, I think it probably is right to move them on.
But where do you move them to, Jimmy? They're making so much money. There's very few places.
Yeah, you might have to eat some salary, for sure. You probably definitely 100% will have to eat some of that.
This is where you really want the Saudi Premier League to be successful.
Yes.
Come in for one of these guys, right? But they have to want to go there as well, and maybe they don't. You know, maybe they're not just mercenaries. They'll be in Saudi Arabia by next season. No, but I mean, it's a good point, though. It's not easy to move those contracts. You've got to eat money, but we see this ownership, MLSE, eating money all the time. They pay Mike Babcock, 5 years of salaries not to coach the team, right? So there's money there. Have they been burnt, though? That's a question. Are they saying enough of this? We're just bleeding money here. We're going to find out. But yeah, big job for John Herdman. It's going to be a fascinating a few months. So much anger and hate around the game right now, isn't there? This week in England, of course, VAR. I think I saw the headline on so many posts, VAR farce, which I just hate now. It's just, okay, we get it. There's issues with VAR. We saw in the Spurs Liverpool game, I know a fellow Red here, not happy with it. I mean, horrendous. Probably the worst VAR mistake we've seen in England, in that the actual VAR didn't realise the goal had been waved off. They thought the goal had been awarded and agreed with it. Yeah. So check over that they got a red card, potentially wrong as well. Where do we stand here? Listen, is this just human error once again, as it is with referees, or is it the technology? Because to me, the technology, generally speaking, gets it right. And VAR isn't going anywhere, right? That's the thing. I don't like VAR personally. I wish it wasn't there, but it's not going anywhere. It's not going to disappear. So what do we do here? Get better people implementing VAR? What is the solution? Is there a solution?
It's human error with technology. Like the technology, like you said, supposed to overcome everything, any mistake that's made out there. But how do they make that mistake? How, like, if they realize after he's allowed it to go, call it back, get in his ear. Say, listen, something's happened here, let's go back. Even if it's a minute later, 2 minutes later. Because we all complain about the length of VAR.
Well, the whole point is getting it right also.
Precisely.
Like, I absolutely agree with you. Stop the game and say, hey guys, that was a goal. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And just FYI, we did a poll yesterday. Social media manager was busy. Sharps. I don't know who that is.
I don't know.
And the question was, if Wonger could go back in time and assassinate the concept of VAR, should he? And right now, it's a yay is 46%. The nay is 54%. So, I mean, we've always had discussions about this, and Craig loved it when it first came out, I remember. Sharms wasn't on board, and Dicchio, who was part of our crew, hated it at one point. Where does it land for you now, Jimmy?
I like it, but I just like it in the box. In the box for goals or fouls. That's the only place for me that I like to see it. The rest, let the referees take care of it. But look, this game, there's always going to be errors. There's going to be mistakes, right? And I think before VAR, we learned to accept that. Whereas now, the whole game is all about VAR stopping every moment, going back to fouls, and like stop, let the game play. But for me, just a penalty box. That's the only place I would use VAR.
In this case, Craig, though, in this case, if that was the case, there was no VAR, it would have been still no goal because the flag went up and it would have been wrong. And we'd be screaming at the linesman this morning and screaming at the referee, not the VAR. So someone's getting screamed at regardless. As a former player, can you stomach a referee getting something wrong? And then you play for Canada in CONCACAF, you know all about this. Can you stomach that more so than the technology getting involved and confusing and clouding the issue?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I don't think there's anything wrong with VAR. It's the people actually operating the system. The system works fine if you have people that know what they're doing. I just can't believe the incompetence and how that actually happens and the lack of communication. All game, not just even for the goal that was disallowed, all game as far as yellow cards, you know, letting them know maybe that was a soft yellow card. This is about game management, and you need all the help you can get. And they've got all the help. They're all mic'd up. They could talk to each other. I don't get how this is actually missed. And the tragic thing for a club like Liverpool is that we talked about it. It could be enough to win the title. That difference, they could have gone on to pick up 3 points, let alone lose 3 points. And they ended up working incredibly hard. It was a deflating result for them because they did incredibly well setting up their stall to get a result with 2 men down. And we talked about it yesterday in the podcast that it's not always easy breaking down teams with, you know, they're 2 down, but defensively they're still in a pretty solid blocks and very well organized. And as a team, you know exactly what you got to do. You're not looking to score, maybe catch somebody on a fast break, but you're basically got everybody behind the ball. And it's hard for teams like Spurs when you're in that situation. You think it's an easy 3 points at that stage. It is not. It's tough to break down teams even when they're 2 men down. And in the end, an OG split them apart. But yeah, it was a real tough one to swallow for Liverpool. It really was.
There's a hot rumor that VAR could be coming to CPL next season, as early as next season, Jimmy. Will they use the Premier League method or the MLS method? Because MLS seem to get things. I think it's better off in MLS than
Sorry,
Premier
what's
League.
the difference? What is the difference between the two?
Jimmy?
Got angry with that, didn't you?
No, because
Very emphatic.
Now there.
It's the systems, it's protocols. I don't know. That's the answer. I'm trying to dance around here right now.
So you know there is a difference, or there might be a difference.
I'm led to believe there's a difference. There's different VAR systems out there. There's different VAR systems, no matter what league there's different technologies.
why is Sharms asking a question that he...
Well, that's my job to ask a question.
Yeah, but how would he know?
Because he's the pundit.
Oh, okay.
He's the expert. You must know everything.
There's a difference between the Premier League VAR
Yeah.
and MLS VAR.
Yes, there is. And Bundesliga, there's different systems in play.
But do they not? Are they
Why
not
are you asking me this?
supposed to be doing the
I
same
can't
thing?
give you any more information on this. Yeah, the
So how can
end
it be
result
different?
should be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how? I don't understand.
Well, I believe MLS have got the time, the far less time they're wasting on VAR than, for example, the Premier League right now.
You're so
Please someone help me. Someone please save me right now.
For
I'm
me,
drowning here.
20 years, 20 years professional broadcaster, and you ask that question.
Good question. The audience know I'm right. There's a difference. I just don't know what the
If
difference
the
is.
audience has the answer for us, please tell us.
the best method, like I'm not a fan of it, like yourself. I prefer human error, because you can have a go at the ref then. That was a fun part of the game for me.
Yeah.
They make a mistake, what the fuck you doing? Like how's that? Like, I'd prefer that, but if you're going off the system, the different types of systems that they've had, the Women's World Cup was a great one.
It was great.
The accountability of the referee, the transparency was amazing, because they had to explain their decision as they stepped back on the field.
Yeah.
The referees in the Premier League, they've got egos as big as Insigne's. There's an issue.
You've got to hear what they're saying. I think it's a big part. What is the communication between Stockley Park, in this case, in England, and the referee? What is happening there? Get that information out there. I still don't know why they have to actually announce the VAR's name as well when they drop him. That's pretty tough. I mean, this guy is going to be under enormous pressure next time he's VAR. But going back to CPL and just, our referees, is it easier to scream at a referee than some faceless, booth somewhere? A lot of controversy in the CPL this weekend. In the Forge game against Halifax, I think Friday, Bobby Smirniotis said post-match, for 5 years, everyone has done a fantastic job moving this league forward. This isn't a Forge thing. It's across the entire league. Some things aren't moving forward, and it's not good. We can't have these amateur things going on at this level. Carl Becker said these refs are seemingly getting worse and worse. There's always going to be anger, right? There's no perfect system. I just personally prefer the human element a little bit in these cases. It's easier to yell at a referee than it is that faceless, disembodied VAR. Craig?
I disagree because I don't know. I played enough clubs that you felt like you're getting screwed over by referees all the time. And I like I'm a big fan of VAR. I just think that it's just how they work it. And it's still evolving in a lot of ways. They had a lot of problems with VAR when it first came, really big problems when it came into the Premier League. They were the worst at dealing with it. And then I thought the World Cup, you're right about the Women's World Cup and even the Men's World Cup, how they use VAR, I thought was very good overall. So it can be used well, but they're having a bit of a nightmare in England. And this is obviously right under the microscope.
What was the worst refereeing decision or experience you ever had as a footballer? And it's got to be in CONCACAF, right?
It has to be in CONCACAF.
Well, got sent off. Remember Belize and Kingston?
Oh, that's
I
right.
came on sub, so we had the 2-game series. I started the first game.
That cabbage patch of a field.
Oh, it was
that.
awesome, yeah. But then I came on second game, so Frankie's put me on. He's like, go on, just put yourself about. First thing I did, ball goes in, guy taps around the corner, I come in, minimal touch, flops all over the place, yellow card. Like I've been on like 30 seconds. Like 3 minutes later, ball goes up, gets thrown down. Ball comes into me, I turn, the guy's right behind me, we run into each other, yellow card, red card. I'm like, what the is going on here? Yeah. And I walk over to Frank and I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like he's like, here we go on.
Still, these conspiracy theories, generally speaking, they're nonsense. There's one around the Spurs-Liverpool match because the VAR crew were actually in the UAE last week doing a game. And the conspiracy is that, well, UAE, Man City, they're in there. There was some clandestine meeting, and they were told to screw over Liverpool, who are a threat to. It's absolute crap. It's nonsense. That's actually what people are talking about.
Why is the outcome, though? Like, what's the big goal at the end?
To deprive Liverpool of 3 huge points as they chase Man City in the table.
Right.
It's nonsense.
Okay.
But that's actually what's being discussed right now. Because
they should have talked to Wolves then.
What's that, Craig?
They should have talked to Wolves because Wolves beat Man City. Forget about that.
Exactly, right? Exactly. There's also controversy in the Forest game against Brentford as well, right? So there's stuff, a lot of moving parts, a lot of frustrated figures this weekend. Did you see the Nate Ingham, by the way, comments post-match yesterday? After the CPL match, Ledico lost a huge match. You were doing the call, Jimmy, against York. A massive, massive game. And his comments were scathing of his team. I found it so refreshing. It's great for us in the media. He's a leader in that team, Jimmy. You know Nate really, really well. Did he go too far? Or is that going to really motivate his team, who really have to, they have to win and hope for help next weekend?
You hope it's going to motivate his team. He was just being brutally honest of how he felt. Emotions were running high because it was a match that they wanted to win. Because they lost, it dropped them out of playoffs. But with Nate Ingham, he is the captain. He is the leader. And when he was speaking, it's all about we. We need this, we need that, which is, I don't have a problem with it. One thing you don't do as a captain is start pinpoint your players out in public. You leave that for the dressing room when someone's
individually, I mean.
Individually.
Okay.
Right? And the reason why you're in that role is because you've got the respect of the dressing room and the players value you. Inside that dressing room, if I'm going to dig out Hume or dig out Forrest, yeah, that's behind closed doors because you're not pulling your weight. And you might tell me I'm not pulling my weight, but it stays here. But when we go out into public, we're together as a team. Nate Ingham's talking about overall wasn't good enough. And he's calling everybody out. So I don't have an issue with an individual that does that.
Well, I'm not the captain, but I would have to say that was a horrible question, Sharms.
for us.
Yes. You know, going back to the referees in the CPL, and I know Kyle Becker and Bobby were fuming, which is understandable. You know, I've been in that position as well, where I'm absolutely fuming with the refereeing at times. You know, I think when they take a step back and they look at the big picture, you know, you're talking about a league that's only 5 years old right now. There's professionals that are just making their debut, just starting to figure out what it means to be a professional. On that pitch are making mistakes all the time. There's coaching staffs that this is their first time being a head coach, first time being a professional assistant coach. Their behavior sometimes and the conduct on the bench isn't where it should be as a professional coach, but they're going to learn and they're going to evolve as a coach. The players are going to learn, they're going to evolve. And there's no difference with the referees as well. A lot of these referees are first-time professional referees who are now running games, and they're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. And we've got to be able to adjust with that. Now, it's not like we're talking about, you know, the Premier League or different leagues around the world where they've got leagues that have been around for hundreds of years that, you know, these coaching staffs and these players are all in through academies coming into this professional environment, and they've got the experience. We don't. We're developing experience right now. And I think sometimes we've got to recognize that and understand that.
But you still understand the frustration, you know, massive
100%,
points on offer here, right?
Yes.
In a tightly fought playoff, you know, tussle there. Wonger, shall we lighten the mood here a little bit?
Yes, there's been a lot of acrimony.
It's time to put the jacket on.
And laughter. I really laughed a lot at that question about
I know, yeah,
the difference in VAR between
at my
MLS
expense. That's great. JC, it's time for some right or wrong.
Oh, it's time to play sports media's favorite game show, Right or Wong, the game where you will guess the correct answer that Wonger will pose to you, whether it be soccer-related or pop culture. If you get it right, 50 points. If you do not and pass it to the person beside you, 25 points. If you get it wrong on all around, you're all losers. Let's give it to our fearless host, Mr. Dan Wonger.
Thank you, JC.
First
Welcome.
question, MLS or Premier League? What is the difference?
What's the difference? So, Sharms, welcome to FP Presents Right or Wong. First question. Question one. Freddie Mercury is one of your favorite singers.
Not one of them.
Is your favorite singer. And Queen, one of your favorite bands.
Not one of them.
Your favorite band. What song topped the UK charts 42 years ago this month?
42 years ago?
Yep.
When's that? 1981?
There you go. Now?
Under Pressure.
Yes. And who is the singer with them?
Bowie.
There you go.
That's two correct answers.
50 points for James.
Huh?
Well done.
Not bad, huh?
Jimmy, we've been talking about this topic. What season was FAR first introduced in the Prem?
Yeah, Jimmy. When was it?
2019.
2019, 2020.
Thank you.
It had been trialed in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, but implemented in 2019, 2020.
Wow. It's been smooth sailing since.
Ever since. Kreger,
Oh, no.
who was TFC's captain after our main man, Jimmy Brennan?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh. Stevie Wonder. Who was captain? Let me see. After Jimmy.
It's a long
It's 5 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a long
That's
one.
it.
Come on,
Oh,
guess.
That's a
Yeah,
tough
yeah.
one.
Danny Dicchio.
No.
I
Hume?
couldn't even tell you. Caldwell.
Nope.
D-Row.
D-Row is correct.
On the flyer.
25
right
points
now.
for Sharms. Hume, there are 2 Canadians in the top 4 of TFC's all-time leading scorers. Name them.
Di Rosario,
Yep.
Osorio.
You got it. Very well done.
Yes.
Okay,
50 points for Ian.
round 2.
That's not bad for somebody who doesn't even
Hates
No,
TFC.
I know. He hates
He
TFC.
despises them.
Man United, Liverpool, and Arsenal have won the most Prem titles. What 2 teams are tied for 4th? With 9.
Man U, Liverpool, and
Arsenal.
Man United, Liverpool, and Arsenal
yeah.
have won the most Prem titles.
That's not true then, because
That's
Chelsea's
not
won
true.
more than Liverpool.
What?
Liverpool's only won 1 Prem title.
Yeah.
Told you we got to look after these.
I know. You see, the football
This
wasn't
is
invented in 1992.
Is this on Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Yeah. so you're thinking international, like you first of top flight title.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Top flight titles.
minus 50 points.
Minus 50 points.
For the host.
What?
Yes.
What 2 teams are tied with
Okay.
9 titles?
I will say Chelsea, and I'll say Blackburn Rovers.
Oh, that's a good
Did
guess.
they win like top flight?
They won one. They won the first Premier League.
92,
No, top
93.
flight though. Oh, but this is
Think
We're
recent.
so confused.
Think
now.
recent.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm at just 5 seconds. So
Think recent.
Was Chelsea one?
No.
he doesn't know the answer now though. 'cause
I
he
do.
goes-
I do.
Oh,
I
you
do. I do.
Okay.
Yeah. It's surprising.
I know this one.
It's surprising.
Well, the first there's two teams.
This is-
The first one you're going to go, of course, because they're winning everything right now.
Yeah.
Oh, why
And then
don't you
the
just
second
tell
one.
them the answer?
So the second one,
That's
Man
5
City.
seconds.
Man City, and this is the surprising one because they've been doing so badly lately.
That's 5 seconds.
Sean Dyche,
Everton.
Everton.
But that is the most
Okay, bad
worst
question.
ever.
Okay,
because
Jimmy,
Everton never
you're
won a
not going to
Premier
win.
League title.
We really
What
need
comedian?
we really need VAR for
Jimmy,
this game.
Jimmy, what comedian who had a hit show in the mid-'90s is also an owner of the Seattle Sounders?
Oh, Drew Carey.
Yes, well done.
50 points for Jimmy.
Kreger, Kyle Larin is Canada's men's top goal scorer with 28. Who sits second on the list with 25? With all the scoring that's been going on.
John Califf?
No, he's in the
seconds.
top. He's in the top 5 though.
5 seconds.
Go ahead, Hume.
Dale Mitchell?
Stop guessing.
Jonathan David, I said.
Jonathan David.
25 points for Ian.
But so you know, De Rosario's third, Cavallini, Catliff, and Mitchell are all tied.
19?
19. Someone did his homework.
Where's Hume on the list?
6.
He's not.
Not as many as big guy over here.
Okay. Here's a
They
movie
should take away the
question.
goals that were scored against St. Lucia and Barbuda.
Yes,
and all that.
Barbuda.
I scored
Exactly.
against St. Lucia. Leave my goals alone. Yeah, cheers.
Hume, in this movie, Dutch-American football coach and friend of the show, Thomas Rongen, faces the option of being fired or accepting an almost impossible task to convert the American Samoa national team, considered one of the weakest football teams in the world, into an elite squad, and it premiered at TIFF this September. Name the title of the movie.
No chance.
First of all, respect TR. We love TR. Is it Next Goal Wins?
Next goal wins.
Yeah.
Well done.
25 points for James.
That's the last question. Who won, JC?
Overtime. Extra time.
Where's the trophy?
Extra time.
Yes, it's a tie.
Okay.
Jimmy
That
and
would've been a
James
good-
will battle to the death.
Okay, Jimmy and James.
Okay.
Who is the lead actor in this movie?
Michael Fassbender.
Charms wins.
James Sharman is the champion.
Hold on a minute.
No. There's no VAR here.
He just won. That was a sudden death.
Who is the lead actor in this movie? I'm waiting for you to tell me the movie.
We just said it. Next goal wins. You remember last night when we said, "Are you paying?"
understand
When you
that.
started doing recycling in the middle of the podcast.
No, I thought it was very
I thought you were
clear.
gonna say another.
Jimmy
I was
was
right
waiting
here.
for another title of the movie. I get it.
Okay.
That's
So
what I
you
was
know
waiting
what?
for.
Hold on. So in that case, let's do rock paper scissors to see who wins.
No, I got it right though.
You did.
But
You
you know,
won.
it doesn't
I
count.
thought the question was beautifully presented. It was clear.
We might as well do that. No, it's 1, 2, 3.
You still lost. You still lost.
He lost twice.
We've decided to cut the trophy in two and give half to each of you. Congratulations.
Thank you for playing right or wrong.
I've never felt so alive. Never felt so alive. All right, JC. It's that final segment of the show where things we may have missed or not missed, or what do you have this week?
Well, we've got a few things. There was some comments on social media. Also, first of all, sorry again to Aerosmith. We've gone long. We won't be able to fit you in again, Stephen. Apologies. Wow. So we have Ryan, who has messaged us on the X/Twitter. I feel like Canada is a backseat soccer nation, if that makes any sense. The country potentially gets wild for things, but stays low in the off seasons. Doesn't help Canada soccer has ripped any momentum they had qualifying for Men's World Cup by omitting September fixtures.
So let's go back to last week's discussion.
Yes.
It's got a ton of traction on social media. So many thoughts. Let's start with you, Hume. The question was, are we a soccer nation here in Canada? There was a thought, certainly last year, with the qualification and the gold medal for the women. Yeah, we're going to be a soccer nation now. It's kind of fallen apart since then. What are your thoughts? You spent a lot of time, of course, in a soccer nation, in England and India. And where else? Thailand.
Oh, I never went that far.
Are we in a soccer nation here?
I think we have the capabilities of becoming one. I don't think we are anywhere near it right now. Qualifying for the World Cup, obviously the women being as successful as they are, gives us that platform. But until we get the support from outside of the sport, not the fans, like the corporate sponsors helping us financially, helping us bypass the issues that we're having right now, we'll never become one.
It's a good point, though. I mean, Craig, that point the viewer made there, that we do celebrate the big moments, and that's great. Big matches, sure, but to become a nation is far more than just that.
Yeah, we're a country of big tournaments, and when we even look at hosting tournaments, we've been a massive success. The Under-19 Women's World Cup in 2002, I believe, when really the coming out party for Christine Sinclair. Amazing event. I think it blew FIFA away. The Under-20 event in 2007, had the Women's World Cup as well, and a few other tournaments along the way. We've really put on great events, and that's why we put ourselves in the shop window as far as having a chance at the World Cup in 2026. So from that standpoint, we're really good. But as far as like supporting really football, thick and thin, culturally, local football, we're nowhere near that. That's just isn't part of our DNA here in this country. And there's also, the pressures of other sports and the popularity of other sports. You're battling against that. And you're also battling against these sports that are actually trying to protect their own interests financially and keep football, soccer pushed down because of the threat that it poses to many sports, and it's going to pose many problems for them as we move along. We see the growth of MLS in the United States and the soccer specific stadiums that we talked about lack of 20 years ago. Remember, Columbus had the first soccer specific stadium, and now it's really a piece of crap, really, when you look at considering the new stadiums that are coming in are just absolutely top notch. They've built that culture up, and MLS is in a really good position. So there's a lot of positives going on as far as building to that, but it's baby steps. It certainly isn't big steps, and it's painful sometimes. But if you really look at it, we've come an awful long way to get to this point.
Yeah, don't forget MLS almost folded, right? Really close once upon a time in the late 90s. So it's the journey, put it that way. JC, what else you got there?
On the same topic, we have a YouTube comment from Stephen McNamara, 8318. I'm so happy that I grew up in Canada that was not a soccer nation. In soccer nations, soccer sucks all the oxygen out of the room and ruins most other sports. It demands it be a full-year sport, making it near impossible for young athletes to do any other sports at all. It also takes place in club levels instead of schools and sees a scramble for talent very early, taking the best kids off the local neighborhood teams year after year, leaving those teams in turmoil and making it apparent it is the business of soccer very early.
I love cynicism, and that's really cynical, isn't it? That's just juicy.
I wonder what sport Steven didn't get to play because of soccer.
Does he make a good point, Jimmy, do you think? Are we fortunate in some regards for the greater good of sport in this country?
What is he talking about?
I'm going to guess he was a fencer.
Maybe.
There's not a lot of money
maybe.
for fencing.
But I mean, listen, you can allow the game to take over your life. You can allow that. You don't have to.
Oh, God.
Like, do we take it too seriously as parents with young kids? Do we take it too seriously?
I think that, you know, we've professionalized a lot of sports in Canada now. Hockey, obviously, but track and field is now, it's one of the first amateur ones that got professionalized because of all the sprinters and how well that federation has done. We do it in a lot of sports. It's funny how it falls down in soccer in Canada, and there's no reason for that. It doesn't have to be that. And if you put in teams that are professional, and this is part of the problem, we had in the Canadian Soccer Association, we had people who were working for free. We have, what are we doing working for free? You're never going to get the best work when you have a federation where your president is doing this ad hoc and making it work around his time. So, hey, going to Qatar is a big deal because you're working for free. So if we're going to professionalize, it starts with the association and then getting everyone, as we talked about, buying in to working together, as Craig and Jimmy said, because Jimmy was making the point, all the provincial leagues don't talk.
Yeah, that's
to the
important.
CSA.
Yeah, of course, there's communication for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, it's a topic that we could talk about for hours and hours and hours. But like you mentioned, we've got the potential in this country to be a soccer nation, but we're a long way from getting there. Footy Prime is more, by the way, than just here on OneSoccer, once a week. 4 days a week, you can find our little podcast and all your social podcast platforms. We've got a Sunday night show wrapping the weekend. Of course, here Mondays. Wednesday, the Foundation show, where things go really off the rails on a regular basis. News and dubs.
Kind of like when Hume's on.
Pretty much when he's playing very well, I have to say that. News and dubs on Friday, when, of course, Amy Walsh joins us. And she's trying to get in on every show, you know. She's she can't quit us, essentially. It comes down to that. But, yeah, please check us out on all your platforms. And, of course, follow us on X/Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're also thinking about some ticker-talking.
Ticker-talking,
Because
yes.
we're relevant, because we're young, cool, hip people, aren't we, Jimmy?
Finish up. Let's go.
All right.
Last question, and I know we only have a few
10
seconds. 20 seconds left. Hume, what jersey do you see? You look back at your career, what jersey do you see? What
Quickly,
kit
you've got 10
do you see?
seconds.
Quick, the one that I enjoy the most at the time was Leicester City, and that's one thing.
Love it. Usually it's Craig asking the great question at the very end of the show. This time
Leicester
it was
City,
Wong.
we got
It's
it
been
in.
Footy Prime. Thank you so much. Back same time, same place in a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving.